Sanjit, so any questions on this area?
None so far. Everything is pretty clear. I just have to read it a couple times over and maybe write a few notes on each and every step. Well, especially the 5 important meetings.
Right.
And pretty much it. And just know every component in this chart. That's it. I just have to sit there and read it.
Okay. Yeah. Fine. So here we can go through one by one. See, Scrum Master what he will do, and Product Owner what he is going to do, Scrum team, and what is mean by product backlog, and what is the Scrum in the Scrum process. What is the testing process? So what you will do? What are your activities? Okay. So let's see. As a Scrum team member, you're a QA member, but they will treat as a Agile Scrum team member only. They won't separate you as a team QA, so or a testing team member. You are a part of Scrum team. That's it. Okay, but they will give you task. They will assign task to you in the product backlog. They will create a task for you also, for testing team also. They will create a task. Then they will assign that task to you. So in that, the first step you will do is you will read and understand the user stories. So user stories is nothing but a requirements. Remember that. User stories are nothing but a requirements. So these user stories are used for developing of the test cases. That's what we have seen in our testing process also, right? The first step is understanding them and designing the test cases. Test case designing. So user stories are written by the product owner, as I already mentioned. So user stories are short description of the functionality of the system under test. See, this is a pure definition. What is mean by user stories means? User story means a short description of functionality of the application or product, which is under testing. For example, you take a simple example here. So insurance provider is, so he wants to pay the premium, so through online. So before it was not there. So you have only paying through manually. Now you want to pay so through online system that is going to be developed. That's one of the user story. Pay premium through online. That's the user story. So that feature is not there in the application. Now they have to develop it. So then the development team will write the code, and you have to write, as a tester, you have to write your test cases. How you will test it? Just think in the so insurance, if you are paying a premium, what are the things you will consider, and how you will pay, and what are the options you need to pay the premium. So that you can think, and you can write the test cases. That's the first step. Test case designing. Test cases are developed based on the user stories, which should be reviewed, approved by business analyst or QA manager or product manager. So very important this step. First step is designing the test cases based on the user stories. What is the second step? Once the test cases are designed, those should be reviewed and you get approval from the business people or product manager or QA manager, from anybody. So that's a mandate as a tester. So once this is done, so development team is doing a development, and they will complete the development and they will deploy the code in the environment. So different environments, so they will deploy the code. So after deploying the code, so as you know, right, already we discussed it. So you will first do a smoke test, then you will execute the test cases one by one, right? That's a test case execution. Test execution is carried out in a lab. That means in the environment. Lab is nothing but environment, where both tester and developer work hand in hand. So defects are logged in defect management tool. So defects you can log in the defect management tool to track them on the daily basis. Because every day you can find the defects, you can log them in the defect tracking tool. So defects can be discussed during the Scrum meeting. So during the Scrum meeting, you can discuss. So defects are retested as soon as it is fixed by the development team and deployed for testing. So that's a test execution process. So at least once you executed manually, retested all the fixed bugs, then perform the regression testing. Then if there is automation, you will start designing the automation test cases. So basically, this also very important when there is a short delivery timelines are there, because every sprint you are going to get a new features. When you're getting a new feature, so you cannot concentrate on the old features. You don't have time. You have to test every time old feature and new features. Where you will get time? So in the 14 days period, 2 weeks sprint time period, you have a time only to test this new feature only, new user stories only. Where you will get time to test the older features. So in order to cope up with that, so all the companies will plan for automation testing to cover the regression testing. So every sprint itself, so automation test cases will be designed, and so it will be ready and merge that code in the same sprint. Maybe you or somebody, your team members will start. So some persons will do manual testing, some persons will do automation testing, both parallelly also. So whoever is available, they can so consider for this task. So that is the another automation testing also will be done. So basically, burn down chart means I already told you, right? Already told. So each day, Scrum Master records the estimated remaining work for the sprint, current sprint. This is nothing but a burn down chart. That's what I told, right? Burn down chart means, so Scrum Master will record the estimated remaining work for the current sprint. So that is called burn down chart. So burn up chart means what is the amount of time completed per particular sprint. That is a burn up chart. So process flow of a Scrum testing is like this. Okay, each iteration of a Scrum is known as a sprint. Each iteration of a Scrum is called a sprint. What is sprint? Each iteration of a Scrum is called a sprint. That means 14 days or 2 weeks is time frame. That is called one sprint. Once 14 days over, next sprint will start again. Again 14 days over, next sprint will start. So this is continuous iteration. So it is not going to stop there only. So that's the sprint means. That's a sprint means. A product backlog is a list where all the details are entered to get end product. So during each sprint, top items of the product backlogs are selected and turned into sprint backlog. So Scrum team will work on this sprint backlog, and they will develop, test, and release that. So that's the process of Scrum process. So you have a lot of general terminologies. Here you can see product backlog means, so user stories will be added here. For any sprint, user stories will be picked up from the product backlog and worked upon that user stories, whatever picked up. So what is epic? It is the complete feature or requirement which needs to be implemented. Epic or feature, both same, okay? Then user story. An epic is split into user stories based on the complexity or work involved in order to develop it. Basically, feature is the bigger one, okay? A feature again, feature are epic. Feature are epic. So again, the epic will be divided into small user stories based on the complexity. In order to develop everything one type, so what you will do, you will divide the feature into small requirements. That is called user stories. Story points. Okay, so it's a measurement to define the complexity of user story from day one QA perspective. Basically, okay, how many days you need to test or implement particular user story. That is called story points. So burn down chart. This is a pictorial graph representation of time and work. This is drawn with the help of the time spent on task along with the work. So team need to burn the hours on daily basis for the work accomplished during that tasks. So that is the, so these are the some terminologies very important. So this is the agile process and agile meetings. Already we have known already. Sprint planning meeting is conducted before the start of the sprint to discuss user stories that can be covered in that particular sprint. What they will discuss in the sprint planning meeting, you will pick up the user stories from the product backlog that you want to implement in the current sprint. That's a sprint planning meeting. Daily stand-up or a scrum meeting is conducted to know the work done by each team member. Mainly, these points will be discussed. Work done, what work is done yesterday, what work is planned for today, what work is planned for tomorrow, and any impediments to complete the work. So these are the points will be discussed in the daily stand-up or daily scrum meetings. So a sprint review meeting. So a sprint review meeting is conducted at the end of the sprint to discuss the progress and where does the team stand for the current sprint. So each user story assigned to them. So where it is. So are they able to complete it or it is progressing? So that is what the sprint review meeting will be reviewed. So basically, this is the optional meeting, which is conducted based on the project and company's requirement. But so I have, we have this sprint review meetings in my previous companies. Sprint retrospection meeting is conducted once a sprint is completed, last day. So on the next sprint got started before. These points will be discussed in the sprint retrospection meeting. What is that? What went well in the last sprint? What didn't went well in the last sprint? What can be done to improve or perform well in the ongoing sprint? So these points will be recorded. So in the retro board, that's one. Defect triage meeting. So basically defect triage meeting who conducted between the QA and the development team to understand the defects that are reported by QA team. So you need to understand and where is the the defect, what status this defect is there. Is it very severe bug or not? That will be so discussed in this defect triage meeting. All that, even product owners and scrum masters, all will be participated in this defect triage meeting because it's a crucial, right? That's why sprint planning meeting is conducted. Already we have seen, right? So it's the start of the sprint. So you will conduct this sprint planning meeting. So this is there is in every user story, a definition of ready, definition of done, and acceptance criteria. So this is the interview questions. They will ask, what is acceptance criteria? So every user story is going to have acceptance criteria. So this acceptance criteria is a set of specific testable conditions that product backlog item must meet in order to be considered complete and accepted by the product owner. What is this? So acceptance criteria means how to test, what testable conditions need to be completed, and so each user story must be included with this acceptance criteria. So if they meet this acceptance criteria, and if they complete this acceptance criteria, then only the product owner will accept that. Otherwise, they won't accept. If anything misses, they won't accept again. So it's on your count. So that means you are missing, you are not able to finish the user story. So it will be spillover to next sprint. If you miss any of them, product owner will not accept that. So the acceptance criteria help to define what success looks like for each product backlog item and provide a clear and measurable definition for the team to work towards that. So what is your work? What this user story talks about? What you need to do? And that will be defined very clearly in this acceptance criteria field in the user story. So you're going to ensure that team is, so at least test that if this acceptance criteria, then you can accept that. So that the acceptance criteria means every user story is going to have this acceptance criteria. So definition of done. So definition of done is again set of criteria agreed upon by the Scrum team. So it is used to define when a product backlog item is considered complete and ready to be accepted by the product owner. So that means, so definition of done means you have completed. So it is ready to be accepted by the product owner. That's called the definition of done. Then the definition of done provides a shared understanding of what is you have tested, what is high quality product, and what requires all the conditions you have completed. That's why a product owner is able to accept that. So that's a definition of done means you are able to complete it in the same sprint, and so it is acceptable. All the acceptance criteria, you tested it and you met all the acceptance criteria conditions. That's why they will change the status as a definition of done. So definition of ready. So definition of ready is a set of criteria, so agreed upon by the Scrum team. So that means the Scrum team is accepting this criteria to be met. So used to define when a product backlog item is considered ready to be worked on. You're going to start working on that. So it is going to ensure that fully prepared to start working on the user story. So all the necessary information and dependencies are clearly mentioned in the user story. So it will reduce the risk of delaying or rework of that user story, so that you can easily and develop and test it thoroughly without any doubts. So all that guidelines and everything will be mentioned in this user story. That is called definition of ready. So these points are very important. Okay, please go through that and come back. Okay, so and we have few points: agile velocity. And let's finish this quickly and give me another 2-3 minutes. We'll finish it. Okay. What is agile velocity? Agile velocity means, so it's a metric, basically, how much work you have completed in a particular sprint, in the 2 weeks sprint. So that is called agile velocity. Basically, how many story points you have completed in a particular sprint. That is called agile velocity. So, for example, so this is a very useful for planning and estimating the how fast work can be done. Why do you need this agile velocity metric? The business people can easily plan and estimate how much work is pending, how many we can still take up to complete the user stories for the project. So this metric is calculated. So by reviewing the work, the team has completed successfully during previous sprints. For example, if the team completed 10 stories during a 2-week sprint, each story was worth 3 story points. Then the team's velocity is 30 story points per sprint, right? So the team completed 10 user stories. Each user story has a 3 story points. So 10 into 3, 30 story points, entire team able to finish it. That means the next sprint, they can plan another 30 story points related test, user stories they can assign to the team in the next sprint. So that planning purpose, this will be very useful. That's a agile velocity. So here, so what is agile velocity means? Number of total story points by one iteration. So that's a agile velocity means. So story points means, what is story point? It's a measurement used by the Scrum teams to implement the particular user story successfully. How many days you need to complete the user story? That is called a story point. Basically estimations, right? Estimations we are calling in the agile process as story points. So how you will give a story points? So the story points based on understanding the user story is very important. Make sure everyone on the team is understanding the requirements. So, and use relative sizing. So you need to understand, okay, what is the complexity of this user story? Based on that, you will give the story points. Use a standard scale. Basically, Fibonacci series scale will be used like 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21. These are the story points. So this is how you will give. So for example, you can finish in 1 day. You can give 1, or you can give is a half day. You can finish 1. You can give story point. 2 means 1 day you can finish. You can give 2 story points. 3 means at least 2 days it will take. 5 means maybe 3-4 days. 8, 5 days. 13 means entire 2 weeks sprint. That 13 you can give. That means it's a complex user story. That's why you need a 13 points. So while giving these story points, you have to justify your so why you are giving that much story points. If it is easy or complex, you have to explain that. They will ask all this, why do you need this many user story points? So you have to have a fair idea on that. So that's the, otherwise you can give like a X small, medium, large, extra large. Like this also you can give a story points. But generally people will follow this only. 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. So these are the story points generally people will give for each user story. Okay. So that's all about, see, small story means 1 to 3 days. Medium means 3 to 5 days. Large means 5 to 7 days. Extra large means greater than 10 days. So this is the how you can give story points and how you will perform the, how many days you need to finish that user story, whatever assigned to you. So that's all about overall agile process. Please go through this and take time. And this is a very important, you should have